We all fear death, but some ways of dying seem designed to exploit our deepest, most primal fears. Claustrophobia, fire, suffocation, the crushing weight of the earth above you. Tonight, we're looking at 10 of the most anxiety-inducing deaths ever recorded. Not myths or urban legends, but real events that show how fragile the human body and mind can be when pushed to its absolute limit. This isn't for the faint-hearted. You've been warned. The Byford Dolphin decompression accident, 1983. It happened on a cold morning in the North Sea. A diving team aboard the Byford Dolphin oil rig was working inside a pressurized chamber system when a mechanical clamp was released too soon. In less than a second, the pressure inside dropped from 9 atmospheres to 1. The result was instant and horrifying. The diver's blood literally boiled. One man was blown through a 60-centimeter opening, torn apart by explosive decompression. Internal organs were found up to 10 meters away. There was no time to feel pain, but the image of that chamber remains one of the most disturbing scenes in industrial history. A reminder of how quickly human life can be shredded by physics itself. Neil Moss, The Peak Cavern Entrapment, 1959. For 20-year-old Neil Moss, caving in Derbyshire's Peak Cavern was meant to be a weekend challenge. Instead, it became a nightmare. Neil descended into a tight vertical shaft known as Moss Chamber, later named after him, and got wedged 1,000 feet underground. Every attempt to pull him free failed. As rescuers worked, carbon dioxide built up in the narrow passage. Breathing became harder. After 2 long days trapped in total darkness, Neil's oxygen ran out. He died alone in a crack of stone no wider than his shoulders. His parents gave permission for his body to remain there, and rescuers sealed the tunnel forever. To this day, that section of the cave remains closed, a tomb of rock and silence. Floyd Collins, The Sand Cave Tragedy, 1925. Before television, America followed one story on the radio. Floyd Collins, a cave explorer trapped 55 feet below the surface of Kentucky. A rock pinned his leg in a narrow tunnel. For days, rescuers passed him food, spoke with him, promised he'd make it out. But a collapse sealed the passage. Collins survived for almost 2 weeks before dying of thirst and exposure. His suffering captured the entire nation. Newspapers updated his condition hourly. When his body was finally retrieved months later, it was placed in a glass coffin in a nearby cave, turning his final resting place into a morbid tourist attraction. Few deaths have ever combined such isolation and worldwide attention. Medieval torture and execution, impalement, flaying, boiling alive. History's cruelty is difficult to comprehend. In medieval Europe and Asia, executions were designed to prolong agony, not end it quickly. Victims were flayed, their skin peeled away while still conscious. Others were boiled alive in oil, their screams echoing through public squares. Some were impaled on stakes, the pole driven through the body and raised upright, leaving them to slide down slowly over hours, even days. These weren't just punishments. They were performances meant to terrify entire populations into obedience. The pain was unimaginable, but the psychology was worse. To die while being watched as your body became a warning to everyone else. Nazi concentration camp deaths, 1939-1945. In the concentration camps of Nazi Germany, death was not a punishment. It was the purpose. Auschwitz, Treblinka, Sobibor, each became a factory of extermination. Men, women, and children were stripped, cataloged, and sent to gas chambers disguised as showers. Those not executed immediately were worked to death, starved, frozen, or used for medical experiments. What makes these deaths uniquely horrifying is their scale and bureaucracy. The way millions of lives were processed like paperwork. It's the cold efficiency of the cruelty that chills the blood. A reminder of how ordinary people can build extraordinary evil. The Hajj Stampede, 2015. Imagine being trapped in a sea of people so dense that you can't move your arms. You try to breathe, but there's no air. The crowd pushes tighter, ribs crack, lungs collapse, and you realize you're standing among the dead. During the 2015 Hajj pilgrimage near Mina, Saudi Arabia, a crush killed more than 2,000 people. Temperatures reached over 40 degrees Celsius. Bodies piled on bodies, and rescue workers struggled to reach the core of the crowd. It's one of the deadliest human stampedes in history. And it happened during a sacred journey meant to bring peace. Execution by boiling or molten metal. Throughout history, certain crimes, real or imagined, were punished with liquid death. In ancient Rome and later medieval Europe, victims were lowered into vats of boiling water, oil, or even molten metal. Witnesses wrote of skin peeling off in sheets, of people screaming for minutes before their organs failed. It was death by heat and humiliation, a punishment meant to burn both body and memory. Few tortures have ever been so visually horrifying or so deliberately designed to erase a person's humanity. Buried alive, the fear that created safety coffins. Before modern medicine, doctors sometimes misdiagnosed the dead. People fainted, fell into comas, or entered states mistaken for death and were buried alive. Gravediggers later found coffins with scratch marks, even broken nails embedded in the wood. The fear became so widespread that inventors built safety coffins with air tubes, bells, and flags connected to the body. A desperate insurance policy against the worst possible mistake. To wake up in total darkness, realize you're 6 feet under, and know no one can hear you. That's a fear that still haunts our imagination today. Animal attacks, death by nature's predators. Few deaths feel more primal than being hunted. Shark and crocodile attacks are among the most terrifying because the victims are conscious throughout. They see it coming, but can't escape. Witness accounts describe the moment water turns red, the strength of jaws crushing bone, and the silence after the struggle. It's the nightmare of total helplessness, being devoured by something older, stronger, and built purely to kill. John Edward Jones, The Nutty Putty Cave, 2009. John Edward Jones was 26, a father, a medical student, and an experienced caver. He entered Utah's Nutty Putty Cave with friends, exploring its maze-like tunnels. Deep inside, he squeezed into a passage barely 10 inches wide and got stuck upside down. Rescuers worked for over 27 hours, bringing food, light, and oxygen. They even built a pulley system to try and pull him free, but gravity was against him. Blood pooled in his head and chest, and his heart couldn't take it. John died 400 feet underground, still wedged in the stone. His body was never recovered. The cave was sealed with concrete, forever marking his resting place. A tomb carved by nature and human error. Each of these stories touches a different fear. The dark, the deep, the crushing, the burning, the helplessness of knowing that no one can save you. But maybe that's why we tell them. Because facing what terrifies us most reminds us what it means to be alive. If you've made it this far, you probably have a fascination with the darker side of life and death. So make sure to like, subscribe, and join me next time as we dive deeper into the stories that most people are too afraid to tell.